Unlike Windows or Mac computers, apps on a Chromebook work quite differently because the entire operating system was originally designed around not really having apps at all. But there are now some ways of installing apps on a Chromebook, as well as some other options entirely that aren't really apps. So, in this video, Timmy's going to explain everything you should know about installing and using apps on a Chromebook. To open an app on a Chromebook, you'll really do that from one of two places. There's the bookshelf, or the taskbar as you might know it if you're more familiar with Windows, which is this bar down here where you see a few apps here, and you can click on an app in this bar here to open it right up, and any other apps you open that aren't pinned will also appear here. Or to find the rest of your apps, the majority of your apps that aren't on this bookshelf bar, you need to open up the app launcher by clicking on this circle in the bottom left-hand corner here, and then you'll see the app launcher, which is this full menu of all the different apps you can scroll through, and you can click on an app in here to open it up, just like you normally would on any computer. And now you can use the app for whatever the app does, and you can resize it and minimize it and do all those things with it. And just as an example, if we open up perhaps the Scan app, as you can see, the Scan app was not on the shelf before, but because it's currently open, it's here. So if we minimize it or something, we still have it down here, so we can bring it up like that. Or if we close it, it will disappear from the shelf entirely because it's not actually pinned here. So that's all well and good, but how do you install apps? Well, when Chromebooks first came out, you couldn't really install any apps on them. It came with the Chrome web browser that you could use to browse the web, and a few other basic system apps like the Files app, and that was pretty much it. The idea was that you would pretty much do everything online, using a website instead of an app. And even though you now can install apps on a Chromebook, which Timmy will get to in a minute, ideally, you're probably going to spend most of your time in the web browser using web apps. Most of the time these days, on any computer in fact, you'll just use web apps, which are basically websites like Gmail or YouTube or Google Docs or the Zoom website instead of a Zoom app and things like that. And these are technically websites that load in your browser and you can just use like that. But unlike traditional websites, they have full user interfaces. So you can pretty much use them as though they're an app, just it happens to be a website. There's websites for photo editing, websites for video editing, websites for building other websites, and much more. And some of these websites are even starting to use more advanced technology called PWA, or Progressive Web Apps, where they can do extra things like function offline and store personalized data to really feel much more like apps. So Timmy will get to installing real apps in a minute. There's a few other ways you can do it. But these web apps will probably work for most of the tasks you need. Nothing to install, just log into a website and you're good to go. So mainly using web apps is really the best way to use a Chromebook. And if you want these web apps to feel more like you're using an actual app instead of a website, you can actually pull up that website. So Timmy will go to iPicky.com, which is a pretty good photo editor. So we'll pull up this website here and we'll dismiss that message, it's not very accurate. But now, once you're on any website that you want to use as an app, you can click on the three dots in the top right-hand corner, and then come down here to where it says Cast, Save, and Share, and hover your mouse over that. And then, in this menu that appears, there'll be an option that says Install Page as App. So, what you can do is click this here and click Install in the pop-up here, and now it kind of installs it so that it feels like an app. So This website is in its own window here. You can't see any other Chrome tabs or anything. It's just this website. And you can proceed to edit a photo and use it like you normally would. And you can minimize it and everything. And it actually has its own icon on the shelf as though it's an app. So you can open it and close it like that, and you can completely close it. And if you click on the app launcher button in the bottom left-hand corner, you should find that icon somewhere in here. Where is it? Oh, it's right up here. So you'll find it somewhere in here. So you can come in here and click on it whenever you need to, and you can directly open up the website like this. So it is still technically a website. When you click on that icon, it just loads the website in its own little box, but it can make it feel a lot more like you're using an actual app rather than just a website. And some websites will even give you a button in the URL bar prompting you to install them like this. So then you can just hit that button and have it installed like this just as easily. But aside from that, you also basically have two different options to actually install apps. The first and main option would be to use the Google Play Store to install Android apps that would normally be installed on an Android phone or tablet, but on your Chromebook. You should find an app called the Google Play Store already installed on your Chromebook somewhere. It's probably on the shelf, but if you can't find it there, it might be in the app launcher. Or if you can't find the app anywhere, you might actually have to open up the settings and enable the Google Play Store by clicking on the time and then clicking on the settings icon, then clicking on apps in the side menu here. And next to where it says Manage Google Play Preferences, if you do not have Google Play Store enabled, there will be a Turn On button here, and you just need to click that button to turn it on. And there's a brief process that you have to go through to accept some terms and set some things up, but it's really pretty straightforward and shouldn't take very long at all. And now, as you can see, the Google Play Store will be opening up. So it's all been enabled, and it might take a minute to kind of get going, but now we're in the Google Play Store. Or obviously, if you just already had it, you can just click on it to open it up. But then, once you open the Google Play Store, if you've ever installed apps on an Android phone or tablet, it's basically just like that. You can just browse through and look at all the different apps that you could install and take a look. And if you see one you want to install, you can click on it and see all the information about it. It's really pretty much the same thing. And when you've found one you want to install, you would just click the install button here, and it might take a second, but then it will go ahead and download and install the app for you. But this isn't always perfect. You do have to keep in mind these apps were all designed to be used on phones and tablets, and a lot of them haven't really been adapted very much to work on a computer. Some of them have been fairly well adapted and now work quite well on Chromebooks, but some struggle a bit and might be a bit weird and glitchy. So sometimes there might be a little bit weird things trying to get them to work with a mouse and keyboard, or it might just be a bit glitchy on a Chromebook overall because it was designed to be used on a touchscreen on your phone. So some apps will work better than others. So it might be a case of trying a few different apps and seeing which one works the best. And they're all getting better as Chrome OS improves and becomes more popular. But once you've installed an app from here, as you can see we have, you can click on the open button here to directly open the app. And you should also now find the app in the app launcher as it is here. And you can just click on it to open it up like you would with any other app. And it will often walk you through a setup process and things. But some apps will pop up with this message here that says this app is designed for mobile. And that means the app was designed for a phone and it hasn't really been adapted to be used on a Chromebook. So you can really just click got it with this message. But what the message mainly means is it's going to keep the app in this shape that kind of looks like a phone. So you can use the app and it should work reasonably well within this shape. But if you try to make it not this shape, it might get a bit weird. So as you might think you could just click and drag this corner like you normally would to make the app bigger. And it actually won't let you do that because it's set to portrait up here. So what you can do is click portrait here and change it to landscape. And now that will make it landscape. So it's kind of more like you're using the tablet version of the app now. So it should look reasonably okay in landscape. But as you can see, it will still be this size and it's now restricted to this shape. But that can be good if you just want to make it a bit bigger and wider. Or your third option is to actually click on this again and click resizable, and it will give you a warning here that it may cause issues, and that's very true. The app, because the app hasn't really been adapted for Chrome OS, it might get very glitchy when you try to drag the corners and resize it, and the layout might not really work at certain shapes and sizes. So it's just warning you about this, but there's really no harm in trying it out. Worst case, the app crashes and you just open it back up again, and you maybe don't use the resizing in the future for this app. So you can tick this box so that it won't show you this message again on this app. And then you can click allow. And now the app will behave like any other app on a Chromebook. So you can click and drag in one of the corners. And as you can see, it feels pretty glitchy as it's doing it. But this app is actually handling it fairly well. And you could even make it full screen or something if you want to. And this particular app seems to be perfectly fine with that. So it's worth giving it a try. It might be perfectly fine, but some apps can be quite glitchy and weird when you start to do this, and they might actually crash, so it just completely shuts the app and then you have to open it up again. So just keep that in mind, but a lot of the apps will work okay. And if you ever want to, you can also come back here and change it back to one of the preset sizes, and it might work a bit better. But of course, this is only some apps. Other apps have really been fairly well optimized to work on a Chromebook and work pretty well. For example, if we search for Adobe Photoshop and we choose this one and install this one, when we click on the open button to open up this one won't have any restrictions on it. In fact, as you can see, it's already opened up to full screen. So you can just proceed with whatever it's telling you to do, a bit of a walkthrough process, and you can just start using the app quite easily. And you can even make it not full screen if you want. You can go to a smaller size, and you can click and drag to resize it, and it should resize to pretty much any size pretty well. And the interface should be fairly well designed to be able to be used with a mouse and keyboard. And one last thing you should know about Android apps on a Chromebook is if you open up the Files app, so pull up the Files app here and go into the My Files section, you will probably see a folder named Play Files with this icon. And if you double click on it to go inside it, you'll see these 4 folders: pictures, music, movies, and documents. And this is read-only, so you can't change any of this, but you can go inside one of these folders and see if there's anything in it. When you install Android apps on your Chromebook, it will create all of these folders for you, and you can't really do much to it, but it's basically where any Android apps might save files that you've saved. So it can be a bit confusing and kind of hard to explain, but if you go inside one of these folders, you might find a folder that a specific app has created. So it's often if you install a photo editor or video editor or something like that from the Google Play Store. If you save a photo using that app, there might be a folder inside the Pictures folder or something with the same name as the app. And inside that folder will probably be the photo that you saved from that app. Often these days, the apps do give you an option to save the photo anywhere else in your Chromebook. So you can save it elsewhere now, but if you've saved a file using an Android app and you're wondering where that file is and you can't really find it, there's a good chance it's inside the folder named that app, inside one of these 4 folders here. So that's a little bit confusing, but apart from searching for files that an Android app has saved, Timmy probably wouldn't really recommend coming in here much. But if you are looking for a file that an app has saved like this, it might be in here. And the final option for installing apps on a Chromebook is Linux apps. For those of you who don't know, Linux is a completely separate operating system that you can install on a computer. So Windows, Mac OS, and Chrome OS are all operating systems, and Linux is another one. But Linux isn't as well known. Linux is more advanced and nerdy. You can't even buy a computer with Linux on it. You have to buy a computer with another operating system and then delete that operating system and install Linux. So most people don't actually use Linux, but a lot of common apps that you would normally install on Windows or Mac are also available for Linux. And you can actually install the Linux versions of those apps on your Chromebook if you really want to. Doing this is quite advanced and it's more of a last resort. Timmy wouldn't necessarily recommend this to complete beginners, but if there's some specific desktop app that you need to be able to use and you can't find any viable alternatives with the Chrome web apps or the Google Play Store or anything like that, if that app has a Linux version available, installing the Linux version of the app on your Chromebook is certainly an option. This can once again be a bit glitchy and things can go wrong, and it's not all that easy to do, but you can do it if you need or want to. If you are going to do this, Tim would probably recommend you watch a dedicated tutorial on how to enable Linux apps on a Chromebook and get them installed. Timmy doesn't have one of those videos, but Timmy will try and put a link to one from another channel that's pretty good in the description below, so you can watch that. But the basic gist of it is you open up the Settings app, so we'll come in here and click Settings, and then you scroll down and click on System Preferences. No, in fact, it's About Chrome OS, and scroll down to Linux Development Environment. And then you click Setup, and then this pretty much walks you through the process. So you'll go Next, and you'll choose a username and a disk size and go Install. And now this part will take a while. What it's basically doing is it's installing a mini version of an entire Linux operating system in the background of your Chromebook. So it is kind of a workaround to do it. But you just need to wait for this process to finish. But now, once that's done, that will all disappear and it will leave you with this terminal app here. And this can be very daunting for beginners. And to be honest, it's not very user-friendly. So you almost need to find a specific tutorial for the specific Linux app you want to install. But the most common way to install a Linux app from this point is to type sudo apt install followed by the name of the app you want to install in here. So it sounds very weird, but that's what you do. Sudo space apt space install space, and Timmy's going to go with GIMP, which is a popular photo editor for Linux. It's kind of very similar to Photoshop, but it's the free knockoff version basically. And Once you've typed that, you press enter. And this doesn't work for every app. Some apps you need to type something different. Some apps need multiple commands and stuff. So you kind of have to Google it. But this is kind of a good starting point. It's kind of the simplest way that some apps do allow it. And during the installation process, if you can get it to start installing, it will usually ask you if you want to proceed with stuff. And usually you just have to basically agree. So you do that by typing the letter Y and then pressing enter, and then it will proceed with the installation. So once you get it going, it can take a while for it to install. So you just need to wait for this to finish, and it will give you this progress here where it's showing you how long before it finishes, or at least how much it's done. And then when it finishes installing, it usually won't tell you it's finished installing, it kind of just stops. But usually once it's finished with this, you can assume the app's installed. So now if we once again go to the launcher and scroll down somewhere, in fact it might even just be up the top here, there should be a new folder called Linux apps inside the launcher. And this is where you'll find any Linux app you install. And as you can see, GIMP is now here, so we can go ahead and click on it and it should open up. So now we have the Linux version of GIMP on the Chromebook, and it fully works on a computer because it was designed for a computer, and you have all the tools and features you would in the Linux version of GIMP on a Linux computer. But once again, if we open up the Files app and go into My Files, there will now be an additional folder called Linux Files. And if you go in here, there's actually nothing inside it right now. But the Linux apps you install can only interact with files inside this folder. So if you're going to try and open up a photo inside GIMP or something, you need to open a file inside a Linux app. You'll need to copy that file into this folder here first before you'll be able to see it inside the Linux app. And if you save a file from a Linux app, so you have a file in the app and you want to save it, you'll only be able to save it into this folder. And then you can come in here in the Files app and move it somewhere else if you want to. So you just have to keep that in mind. You have to use this folder as like a bridge between your Chromebook and the Linux on your Chromebook. But as long as you do that, it can work pretty well. And one last thing, if we come down and click on the app launcher here once again, you should also have this app installed called Terminal. It should come on your Chromebook. And if we open up that and click on Penguin here, this will be the Linux terminal that popped up before after we installed Linux. So if you ever want to install another Linux app or update a Linux app or anything like that, if you need to put a command in your Linux terminal, this is where you'll do that. But for now, we can just close the Linux terminal and just use the GIMP app or whatever other Linux app we installed. And that's pretty much it. Sorry this video is so long, but Timmy wanted to try and cover everything, and hopefully you're able to follow along well enough. And Timmy will see you in another video soon.